Oh my god, sorry. I reset my phone the other day to Australian phone settings and it just didn't let me use the microphone for a minute. Apologies. Hello everyone. So today I actually wrote down the title when I was on a plane the other day because I didn't want to podcast next to this lovely couple that I was sat next to. And the title is Spiritual Psychosis as a Form of Escapism from the COVID Panic. And this is going to be a niche episode. So if you maybe, I don't know, don't believe in spirituality or don't believe in COVID, I don't know, like if you don't, I don't know, like listen if you want to, if you don't. But I was having a conversation with my dear friend Daisy Buckley the other day because we were talking about how when we were 18, 19, etc., we had a lot of spiritual experiences, and certain things within those experiences were very real, and certain things I'm confused about. And so for a bit of like context, when I was 18, I hit my head and I woke up and I had these weird like experiences happening to me. Like I would start seeing things or hearing things or feeling things touch me, or I don't know, it was weird. And the only way I could explain it, or I felt like my gut was trying to tell me to like rationalize it, is that because I almost died. It's not deep, I'm fine, like it's not like a lasting thing, but it did like alter the course of my life. Because I almost died, one foot was left in death, or like on the other side, you know? And since then, I don't know, had like this weird connection with spirit. Because before that I was an atheist. I'd like to just put that out there. Like I'm not one of these people that has always believed. And this was around the time of the 2020 conjunction, which was, I can't remember what month it was in. But it basically was a really, really important and significant planetary alignment that hadn't happened for thousands of years. And at this point in life, for a lot of people, they started waking up. And, it's like literally known as a thing, like TikTok 2020 spirituality. It's like a thing that, a lot of girls, specifically girls, started getting involved with deity work or crystals or incense. Everyone had Moldavite. That's when that time was, Spell work was a big one. And I was no exception to this. And I have been battling recently for the last year, maybe year and a half, with how much of what I experienced was truth and how much was imagined, and what is something that's imagined, and at what point does something exist as a true experience, and at what point does something exist as fiction or imagination. And it gets me thinking about, imaginary friends, and are imaginary friends spirits, or is it just kids with an overactive imagination? And there's a lot of layers to this, so I think this could be a bit of a confusing episode for me. So just expect like a lot of jumping back and forth between points. I'm sorry, I know some people don't like that, but I don't have it figured out yet. So I think one of the main things that I think about during this time is that we were so lonely. Like, it's so unnatural for humans to be forced into isolation, and it's so unnatural for us to not be able to connect. And when I talk about connection, I talk about it in a very broad sense. I don't just mean talking to your friends or, I mean going to the shop and saying hi to the person that's serving you, or being able to, some people couldn't even, come out of their rooms in their house. People that they see every day, even just like walking your dog and seeing another person and stopping and having a chat, or it's every element of connection. And I think at this point in time, we leaned very heavily into the digital, which I think is like why this whole discussion about the third space being forgotten, and everyone was looking to connect digitally, which is understandable because everyone, remember the house party app and like stuff like that, like everyone was trying to find ways to stay in contact with each other, because not only did we have nothing to do, we had no one to see. So it was like, the times where we'd usually be at work, even if you work on your own, after work you'd be able to go see your friends. Or if you didn't work on your own, but you wanted to come home and be on your own, you kind of were on your own all day anyway. And I think for a lot of people, the loneliness was the real kicker, that was the hardest part for a lot of people. I think I wasn't the best girl during lockdown. I didn't obey the rules much. So I think for me, maybe it was slightly like different, because I was like young, rebellious, and like I just turned 18, and I was like, you're not going to keep me in my house. I don't know. It was stupid. I could have put my family at risk, and it was not my brain wasn't developed, and I take it back, and I don't have any intention of doing it again. I also hope that there's not another lockdown again, because that would be terrible. But I think there is a correlation between... I'm also aware that talking on psychosis is a sensitive topic. And I say this as someone who's experienced it, a lot. So please don't think that I'm trying to use therapy talk or trying to talk down on something that is a very difficult thing to experience. I really don't want it to come across that way. However, I think there is a correlation between lack of stimulation and needing to fill something, right? I speak about vacuum theory a lot. I don't want to go into it too much. It is relevant, but, if you've heard me talk about it before, it's basically when something leaves the vacuum, which is your life, by law, something else has to take its place, whether that's energy or whether that's a person, or everything's energy realistically, but it just depends which shape it manifests in. And at this point in time, a lot of things had left a lot of our lives. And if we look to the digital, which is what a lot of us were replacing it with, so I'd never actually had TikTok before 2020. I think that was when it kind of... I don't really know when TikTok became a big deal, because I wasn't on it for a long while. I'm on TikTok all the time now, but for a long time I don't know, I just didn't really use it. But I remember I downloaded it because I thought, well, what the fuck else have I got to do? And a lot of the content that I started to see, along with a lot of other people, was spirituality and, CIA files and what's under the pyramids and conspiracy and what's under the ocean and Middle Earth theory and Antarctica, a lot of these very, very popular, widely spoken about conspiracy theories and topics about religion and religious politics and the media as the new form of religion and how spirituality is kind of the root of all these things, So not only had I gone through this deathly accident, right? And I'm now having these weird experiences. I'm also now seeing all this media that is catered towards spirituality. And I am a big believer in that what you choose to consume or what you choose to take in, whether that be the people you surround yourself with or the media you consume or what you eat or where you go or whatever, impacts the trajectory of your life. I very much am a believer in the Matrix, and I think a lot of times that you have to see it as kind of, one of my friends has a really good explanation for this. He says something about, he uses a word to describe the self, like almost like it's not kaleidoscope, it's like a stimulation comes in through the eyes and through the senses take in the stimulation, and then the subconscious and the peripheral and, you know, all of the other parts of you that aren't, like, you're not fully aware of, take that in as data, right? And then that changes your software. Imagine yourself as a computer. That's the way kind of it is. Like, imagine we are like an AI. You take information in and it changes what you put out or what you receive out or what you see out. Kind of like lens theory, you know? If you've grown up being told that it's okay to be racist, you wouldn't think it's bad to be racist. Do you know what I mean? Terrible terrible explanation, but you get what I mean. Like, you are a product of your environment. And I think at this point, none of us had an environment. We had a shell of what was, especially, I mean, maybe, I think I was sort of the last year, so I was born in 2002, I was sort of the last year of maybe adult during that time. So anyone younger might have a completely different experience to me, but I know for my age group, like 2002 and up, it was a weird time because we were adults, so we didn't have that like school requirement. I was on furlough and I didn't have work, but I was getting paid. It was really weird because I didn't have work, but I was getting paid. And like, to look at the English government now, I can't imagine them doing something like that now. It was weird time. So anyway, I had all this spare time. I'm seeing all this content. I'm having all these weird experiences. And so are my friends. And it would be strangely cosmic things. And I know I sound fucking pretentious. Like, I'm not unaware of that. But I'm also this... my psychosis is traumatizing for me. So speaking about this is hard because I don't do it very often. I have podcasts on it. I have podcasts on some things, but I don't know. It's like, I feel like I very much censor what I say. So if I sound a bit weird or like I'm like trying to sound fucking intellectual, I'm just trying to use the right words because I don't want, like, I'm also aware that like people that listen to my podcast don't actually know me, you know, and like I'm trying to learn a bit about like not everyone needs to know everything type thing. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, I would have these weird experiences where I would have an encounter and I'd tell my friend about it and they'd be like, what the fuck, that's so weird. I've just had the exact same encounter. I remember, I know I sound nuts, right? But I remember I was having all these weird experiences where it felt like I was being contacted by a very specific spirit. And the signs were deafening. Like, it was to the point that it was like, get out of my fucking head. Like, what the fuck is going on? Or like, you know, I'd ask for a sign and it would be there in the next hour. And anyway, this one specific spirit that I just felt very drawn to in this moment, I messaged one of my friends and I was like, I'm having this really weird encounter. I don't really know like what's going on. This thing just happened. And I remember as I was sending this voice note, so this spirit is represented by a horse. And I was saying to him, like, look, this is happening. I don't know what's going on. It's so weird. And I look up and there's a huge fucking stone horse in front of me. And I just remember thinking, what the fuck? And like, I remember another time, this also isn't just me. I'm not trying to just be like, please believe me, I have all these experiences. Like, that's not, I don't care if you don't believe me. I just think it's an interesting topic to talk about. But one time I was in a field with my friend and we were meditating. And we were meditating over 5 specific spirits. And I had my eyes closed, whatever. And Daisy was like, oh my God, Evie, open your eyes. I opened my eyes and there's 5 horses in the field staring down at us. And I was like, also a bit freaked out because like, I'd never seen that many horses in that field. I'd never seen more than like 2 horses in that field. And I grew up like next to that field. I've walked through that field hundreds of times in my life. Weird. And then we'd like turned around and then like 10 minutes later, we turned back around and there's like 50 horses in this field. And there was just this feeling of like, we hear you, like we see you, like from spirit. If you're not spiritual, you're going to be like, wow, this girl's crazy. That's fine. You can think that. But it was just like, it was so weird, like not weird, but like inexplainable. And anyway, so I'm telling my friend about this experience with the horses and then whatever. And then he messages me back being like, I have had not obviously the exact same experience, but like a similar experience or similar communications from this specific spirit, the same as you. And it was fucking spooky, man. Like, it was so weird. And so we started to delve into this, and especially given the fact that we had a lot of free time and we had, you know, money, we had disposable income. Like, we spent a lot of our time in crystal shops and we spent a lot of our time smoking weed at various locations, out and about. It was summer, you know, like we were outside. It was, you know, we were very, at that point, like this weird hippie group of people. And I think it's weird because like I can tell you about experiences, you know, like with these horses, and there's, you know, fucking countless other experiences I could tell you. But there was also other experiences that, looking back, I don't know how real things were. And the hard part is that this is why it's hard, because you can't say nothing happened, because I had these physical real life experiences. I touched these horses, I spoke to these people, I did these things. Like, you know, I would speak to strangers, I would read for strangers on the internet, and you know, we would go out and read for people in public, and like, these were real life encounters that me and other people will remember the same way. So it's like, there is that. But then it's like, there's these other encounters that are, there's no evidence for them. There's no pictures from them. There's no videos from them. There's like no like receipts, right? And I was sending this voice note to Daisy yesterday about it. We were having a little discussion about it. And I was saying, like, at what point does it become psychosis? Because I know at one point my spiritual paranoia was horrendous. Like, I became obsessed with being spiritually clean. I would cleanse myself morning and night. I was doing cord cuttings like almost daily. I was doing banishings and unbindings, and, you know, I was doing a lot of witchcraft, and like, that's not bad. However, I wasn't protecting myself, and I didn't really know too much what I was doing. I just knew I was getting results, or like, and it was weird because it was like I could do it, but then bad things started happening, and it was, you know, like, it was like a lot of it was really scary. Like, I remember one time I came home, my house is like low-key kind of haunted, I'm pretty sure, but one time we all came home from a night out. We were home alone. There was no one else like at home. And me and Freddie specifically hear 2 children running down the corridor of my, like, upstairs, laughing. And I remember thinking, something's in the fucking house. And it's like, it got to the point where I felt like my life was just warding things off all the time, like warding spirits. And that's when I feel like it started to veer into psychosis, because I feel like if you don't believe in demons, or if you don't believe in like negative entities or darker entities or anything like that, I don't know, maybe don't listen to this episode or this part of it, because I'm about to get into that, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, or I don't know. But yeah, I got into this habit of just being convinced that there was always something attached to me, or there was always a parasite on me, or there was always something, you know. And it is a known thing that the more you open yourself up, it's like a two-way street, you know. The more open you are, the more open they are, the more things can get to you. And that's why warding is so important, and, you know, casting circles is important, and like all of these different things are very important. And I think we neglected that. So I do believe that there were encounters that happened because I had them with other people. But the hardest part about this, because me and Daisy actually didn't speak for a few years, but now she's, you know, we're literally like best friends. She's like the light of my life. But we didn't speak for a few years. And throughout that time, I feel like I went through this period of thinking, like, what actually happened? Like, did it happen? Did it not happen? Like, were the things that I experienced on my own real? Like, do I need evidence for these things to happen? And, you know, what spurred this video is I actually saw a TikTok about a girl saying, like, a really similar experience that she had, about how during COVID, everyone kind of went nuts. Like, everyone kind of went a bit mad. And I actually have a podcast, and it was one of the first that I ever made, about how going mad is to create, and that going mad is the smartest thing you'll ever do. It was about Mac Miller, and it was about the film Black Swan. I think that's what the film's called. And it's just about, it was about how the art of like losing yourself to something, and like completely like submitting to something. And I feel like in my life, I'd always veered on control, right? And so had a lot of other people. This is like, when I'm speaking from now on, I'm speaking about the collective, right? You know, I was in the schooling system. I had to get a job. I had to do things in my life. And then there was this pause, right? There was COVID, the great pause. We all stopped. And I think a lot of people were like, what the fuck are we doing? And then, you know, if you add that to all these experiences, you're having all these experiences and no obligation to be anywhere but sit in these experiences. And I don't necessarily see them as good or bad. I don't really believe in good or bad. I don't really believe in right and wrong as a construct. Take that with a pinch of salt. But, you know, an inherently negative experience, I think, is beneficial in a lot of ways. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, I understand. But anyway, I was having these experiences, good or bad, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And there's no escape. There was nowhere to go. There wasn't a shift I could go to so I could clock off. There wasn't a class I had to get to. I couldn't go and see a friend and talk about it and get my mind off it and go out for coffee. I couldn't, you know, even go for a fucking walk. I was sat with my thoughts. And, you know, I have a very great relationship with my mum, and she was also very there with me through a lot of it. So I wasn't like completely alone, like I think a lot of people were, but I think spirit found its way into a lot of people's lives through the absence of other connection. And it's that vacuum theory of, because it's that something's always going to fill it, our human instinct is to fill it with material stimulation. You know, phone, food, people, experience, whatever it is. And I think the human interaction part of that puzzle wasn't being filled, because digital communication does not fill the void of human connection. We all learned that during COVID. You know, we were all making all this food all the time. We were all sunbathing all the time. We were going on these walks when we could, after they lifted the ban. Still, none of this is human connection. And I believe in my heart, spirit, and, you know, it, right? I don't know what you fucking believe in. I believe in, like, the consciousness, whatever. Took that chance as a way to enter in, because typically, because of our fucking shot ass attention spans, we would have filled that immediately with something, whether it was a one night stand, whether it was talking to someone on a night out, whether it is speaking to someone in the shop, whatever kind of human connection you would have filled it with, you would have filled it with something. We didn't have that. That void could not be filled at all. So I believe that spirit took that as a way and a chance. And I think, honestly, like, so many people that I know that delved into spirituality or spiritual practice during this time, it saved them and it healed a lot of them. And I think, like, I'm in the same position as a lot of other people where, like, it found them. They didn't go to it. And I also think the power of women talking helped, because this was such a female dominated thing at the time. And, like, I know it was like this thing, oh my god, you're a crystal girl, but, like, I actually did, I've said this 100 times before as well, but I did my dissertation on gossip and communication. And women have throughout history used gossip as a form of self-preservation, right? Stories passed down through generations, plant medicine, you know, telling you not to go near a certain tribe or to go near a certain animal, whatever. It's all gossip. Don't do that because it will hurt you. Modern day, we don't have that knowledge anymore. We don't have plant medicine knowledge. We don't have animal knowledge like that. So we still have this innate ability because it's embedded in us for safety reasons. But now, because that part of ourselves has been eradicated by capitalism, a lot of women still do that, and they find different ways to do it. So it can be talking about their hobbies, or it can be like, you know, gossip has this negative connotation which I really don't like. Obviously negative talk about others is typically what gossip is, and that obviously does go on. That happens all the time, I'm sure. But I believe that gossip, in the sense of knowledge being passed down, was rife during this COVID 2020 spiritual moment. Like, everything I learned, actually that's not true, but I would say like maybe 60% of what I learned, I would learn about the concept on TikTok from a girl, you know, from a young girl who was in the same boat as me. And, you know, I'd learn about it and then I'd have my own experience, or I'd do my own more research or whatever. But, like, I learnt these things, these topics came from young girls just like me. And, like, that's why whenever anyone says, like, are you a fucking crystal girl? Yeah, the fuck I am. Like, and I'm proud to be, because these girls taught me so much. Like, so much. And it's things about karmic cycles and breaking generational trauma and, like, you know, learning that, like, your fucking trauma is stored in your hips, and how to do specific yogic poses yogic poses to release, you know, stored trauma, and how trauma is passed down through 3 generations, and how we carry the trauma from our ancestors, and how, you know, about Kundalini, and about, you know, like the Akashic scripts, and all of this stuff I learned from girls, you know, and women. Of course there was like women as well, but like this all came from women. And I just, like, I'm so passionate about the fact that, like, I believe, like, and like, I feel like I'm getting really emotional. I don't know why, like, talking about this is like, I feel like healing something in me, but like, I really believe that, like, this knowledge has forever been given to women. Like, women have always been the embodiment of spirit. You know, we have like portals in our stomachs that bring life into the world. Like, and like, even though men still shit on the fact that we're crystal girls or whatever, oh my god, you love astrology, whatever the fuck it is, like, we were blessed with that knowledge. Like, we were given that knowledge, and like, knowledge was given to me to pass down to other people, and I get to learn from other girls and other women about things that I've never even heard of. And like, I really believe that, like, channeling at that time, and if you don't know what channeling is, it's basically like when spirit gives you a message. Have you ever had, like, just in your head a message, don't do this, do that, or, you know, tell someone this, or you just have this piece of information dropped into your head? That's a channel. And I genuinely believe, like, at this point, like, so many girls and women were receiving so many spiritual downloads and so much wisdom in the absence of traditional capitalist propaganda. And it was like the one time where we were just allowed to just exist as nature. And like, I'm a very big believer in, like, you need to exist as nature, not have nature. Like, nature isn't something you should have, it's something that you are. You know, you can have plants in your room, but you need to see yourself as an extension of those plants. Like, you come from the same earth that those plants come from, you know? And I think maybe me being like a weird little weedy hippie bitch when I was like 18, 19 helped me understand that, because smoking weed is ritualistic, and I got to the point where I abused it, and that's silly, and now I don't smoke anymore because I abused it. But in and of itself, weed is ritualistic in the way that it helps you access higher planes of thought and experience. It's the same with any drug. I have a podcast on the demonization of drugs as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that drugs are good and you should be going out and doing drugs every weekend, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that everything is a tool, you know, it's just how you use it. And I love so wholeheartedly that in 2020, 2021, whenever it was, we as women used the digital age, right, as a way to spread spiritual downloads. And I think that was really profound. Like, that was something that I think was very, like, new. Like, it was like a new age, you know, they call it new age spirituality, and new age spirituality does get a lot of shit, and I understand it because it's very disconnected from traditional beliefs, and a lot of spirituality, oh my god, I've got the hiccups, I'm sorry. A lot of spirituality does have ties to religion and ancient scriptures, and they should be honoured and they should be respected. However, I think if you are looking to get into spirituality and someone says, hey, read the Quran, that's overwhelming, especially if you're anything like me and have religious bias because of your years of conditioning that you haven't learnt to undo yet. You know, if you don't even know what shadow work is and someone puts the fucking Bible in front of you, you're going to be like, whoa, like, this is too much. So I think that new age spirituality is a very good way to scratch the surface and figure out what you like, because there is so much to spirituality. And like, the more, you know how people say, like, the older you get, the more you realize the dumber you are. I feel like when I was 18, I figured out all this shit, and I found out about all this stuff, and I learned all these things. And it just made me realize, I know, like, I am experiencing, you can't even, you know, there's not a word small enough to explain how small of a percentage of life is, like, that I am. It's like to the 10 trillionth, millionth, gazillionth power of how tiny it is what I am experiencing of what is out there. And, like, people always say to me, they're like, I'm going to sound crazy, but... And I'm like, you're not going to sound crazy. Like, I sound great. Like, I'm not crazy, and I know I'm not crazy, and I have had to, like, learn that I am not crazy, because now I know what's out there. And, like, I know I sound really, like, nondescript and, like, I'm trying to be aloof and mysterious, but I'm not. I just don't have the time to get into, like, all the things that I know, and even then it wouldn't even be scratching the surface. And it's just really, really big. There is so much out there, and there isn't even any point starting a list. Like, the list would be... It would never end. It would never end, you know? It's like... And there's also things that are beyond our comprehension. We only experience the third dimension. That's not really anything, you know? There's theories that we go up to, you know, the 12th and 13th dimension. So how can you possibly begin to think about something... Sorry, like, my brain's, like, kind of falling out of my head even just, like, thinking about it now. But why am I saying all of this, you may wonder? Because... while I was kind of coming to all these realizations that I don't think I've ever actually verbalized on my podcast before, and I'm having all these weird experiences, and I started having, like, scary experiences. And this is very common for people that go down the spiritual path, and all of a sudden it gets scary. I started experiencing, like, spirit attacks during my sleep, and, like, sleep paralysis, and, like, weird astral experiences, and, like, I don't know, like, weird, like, demonic things, and, you know, hauntings, and I'm not here to talk about all of that. Just a lot of shit. Like, I'm trying to explain, there was a lot of, like, really weird, booky stuff. And I think it got to the point where, because these things aren't tangible, right? You can't measure these things. You can't take a picture of these things. Like, if I see a spirit, I can't take a picture of it. Like, I could, but you probably wouldn't see anything in the photo. And it's like... I remember I found out that a girl I used to live with at uni used to mock me for when I would, like, see spirits and stuff, and, like, take the piss. And, like, I remember just thinking, like, fuck you, because it's like a really fucking weird thing to experience, like, when you see something, but it's like, did you see it? And I know everyone has an encounter where they're like, they heard something, or they thought they saw something, or they thought something happened and they can't explain it, and they don't know, and it's weird, and there's no explanation, especially if you're a logical person and you're looking and you like science-backed things. Spirituality is just literally, like, the worst thing in the world for you, because there's no reasoning. One thing that I learned, I think the biggest spiritual rule that I learned this year is that quite often there's no why. There just is. It just is. Like, things used to happen to me all the time, and I'd always be so caught up on figuring out the why, or, like, why has this spirit come to me, or why am I having these thoughts about this thing, or why am I this, or everything was a why. I mean, like, because I'm quite a naturally inquisitive person, but it just is. It's just that. And, like, I also think as well, like, because, like, as humans, like, we weren't actually meant to live this long. Like, we were meant to live till, like, 30 and then die. And, like, I'm not saying that evolution's bad, and the fact that we've, like, been able to cure loads of terrible diseases and help people that are dying from, like, you know, back in the old days, some people died from a cold, whereas now people, like, outlive like, you know, they can get over it and stuff, like, that's great. But I do think that, like, we weren't meant to live till like 100. Like, we were meant to just live and then die, you know? And like, I don't think there's any wrong in that. I think this weird obsession with self-preservation is what's fucking us all up, because we have this like connection to this earth, which is absolutely normal, but it's been severed by any sort of symbiotic relationship that we have with the earth, and instead it's become about ownership. And I think, like, for me anyway, and I know that Daisy will agree with me if she's listening to this, I feel that experience that I went through, and we went through, like, kind of together during that time, was about them trying to let us know, and I know that a lot of other girls will relate to this as well, because I've seen girls post about it, was trying to let us know that there is always help there when it's needed, and that they may not be in the game, but they're still watching, if that makes sense. Like, it's like they're there, you know. And I think that's where the kind of psychosis, I don't know if psychoticism's a word, psychosis part element, I don't know. That's, I think, where the fucking psychosis comes in, right? Because if you know in your heart something is there, but there is no provable way, there is no way that you can explain it, prove it, show it, whatever, it fucking drives you mad, man. And like, I think this is why it's a lot easier for boys to kind of just be like, oh yeah, well, I don't believe in that because like there's no proof. Because boys are very typically ruled by logic and like science and like earthly fucking third dimensional things, whereas women, and I'm not saying that women are ruled by emotion because we're dramatic, that's not what I mean, but women are ruled by intuition and like energy. Like, I feel like we are ruled to flow with energy and men are ruled to create with energy, you know. And that's why it's important to have a balance of both masculine and feminine energies in men and women. But we've kind of just been pigeonholed into one or the other. Like, if you're a man, you should be masculine, and if you're a woman, you should be feminine, which has caused a whole array of problems. But that's a discussion for right now. So I believe that at this point in time, a lot of women and girls started to go into psychosis because we knew things were there. We knew that we had experiences. We knew that we couldn't prove these experiences. And when you have an experience and you can't see it tangibly or touch it or share that experience with someone else, luckily for me, I had a lot of shared experiences with Daisy and Freddie. So like, I'm a lucky one in that sense. But I've heard stories of girls like literally going insane because they're astral projecting or they're shifting for weeks on end. And then when they come back, they feel this complete sense of like, did that actually happen? Like there's no photos, there's no anything. And it's got me thinking about this whole thing of like, what is provable? What is proof? What is truth? What is, you know, concrete? Like, at what point is something legible? I don't know if legible is the right word. I feel like legible means to read. What point is something, I don't know, objectively true? Because to everyone that experienced that thing, it's true. But to a scientist, it doesn't exist. Or there's a logical explanation. And this is why I feel like we drove ourselves mad. Because one, you can't share those experiences very readily. So that's just in your head. And two, for me anyway, I felt like I started thinking about things and not actually needing any validation of those things to believe them. Like, I was just delusional. I would say it and it would be. Like, and like, I know there's this whole thing about like, you should be delulu and like whatever. I was batshit off the wall insane. Like, I was not, like, I genuinely, like, some of the things that I genuinely believe, and this is why it's hard, because I genuinely believed these things, and it's like, you couldn't tell me that I was crazy, because the experiences that I'd had that were tangible and that I had shared with other people and that other people were there to experience and we could talk about them were also equally as fucking insane. So it's like, how can you have two experiences that both make you sound like a fucking nutter, but one of them's, you know, real, and one of them is potentially just a figment of your imagination? But then it's like, at what point is something a figment of your, like, what is your imagination? Because people say, don't they, like, your imagination is your creative space, and whatever you project out is real in your reality. And that's why, like, whenever anyone says to me, I'm going to sound crazy, I'm like, no, because it's real to you. It is real. And, like, this is why I don't believe in, like, real and not real, or true and false, or right and wrong, because I'm like, it doesn't exist. Like, those constructs were created as a way to tell people that their experiences aren't real. Like, you know, there is not a thing you could tell me that I don't believe in. I believe in telekinesis. I believe in unicorns. I believe in fucking mermaids and vampires. Like, I believe in genuinely anything. I believe in, like, starseeds. I believe in the Lyrans. I believe in all of it. You, like, and the only reason that I hold those beliefs so strongly is because of the things that I've experienced. But it's like, do I have proof? No. Do I need proof? No. And this is the thing, though, is it's like, I think that's when it gets a bit tetchy, is when you don't need proof to affirm things. This is how cults start, right? Like, and I'm so aware of that, and we used to joke and be like, oh my God, we're in a cult. But, like, this is how cults start, and this is how things go wrong. Because if you don't need proof, and people will listen to you, because at that point, somehow, we're getting this message out. Like, people were listening to us for some reason. And, like, this is when things go wrong, because if you are, you know, have bad agendas or whatever, but you so blindly believe, this is like how all the cults start. This is how things get, like, damaging, or, you know, you start to believe things that just, like, it's. But then again, it's like, at what point is it right and wrong? Like, oh, you know, like, the Jonestown massacre and, like, all of these things. It's like, he killed all those people because he got told that someone told him to. And I am genuinely telling you now, and oh my God, am I going to sound nuts. At that point in my life, maybe up until I was 21, so maybe 19 to 21, and this is where I'm telling you it's psychosis, and there's such a connection between religion, spirituality, and psychosis. If a voice in my head had told me to jump off a cliff, I would have done it. That is how much faith, and that is, like, my anchor with my spirit is so strong. Not my spirit, but spirit as a whole. Like, my religious and spiritual beliefs are so firm and like tightly anchored to the core of the earth. But it's like, that's the point where it's like, you need to get some help, because that's, like, kind of weird that you would jump off a cliff because a voice in your head told you to. I get it. Like, this is what I mean when I say I know it sounds nuts. Like, I'm not, please, I actually, don't listen to me. Like, do not take a pinch of my advice, because I'm actually not that crazy anymore, but, like, I'm nuts. Like, I was, like, a nutter. Even if you listen to my older podcast, like, you can hear the fucking delusion, like, in everything. And, like, but you can tell that everything I'm saying I believe so strongly in. But I believe in everything that I say now. I think I'm just a bit more grounded in my approach. But, like, that could be a manipulation tactic. You never know. I don't know. But I just think it's, like, a really interesting observation. And I don't have the answer. So if anyone has the answer, because, like, this has gone on for almost an hour, and I feel more confused now than I did at the start. Long story short, I think it's important to be a bit of a nutter, or, like, to have, like, go through a period of complete delusion and psychosis, you should listen to my other episode actually about, it's called, no it's not, it's called The Art of Losing Control. It was posted years ago, so I was probably stoned when I recorded it, so enjoy that. I don't know, I think I don't have the answer. I wanted to talk, and I think I've done that, but it's confusing me, and I don't really understand. And if anyone has any advice or any experiences from that period of time, or if you are a girl that was also interested in that type of thing at that time, please let me know, because I probably used to watch your TikTok videos on how to do unbinding. But thank you guys, I really appreciate you listening to me fucking ramble on for 50 minutes and 40 seconds. Love you guys, goodbye.